Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7x7. So there wasn't a specific comic panel for Star Wars at San Diego Comic-Con, but it was included as a topic of conversation in the publishing panel that was headed by Michael Siglain, the creative director of Lucasfilm Publishing. And there are three particular titles to which I want to call your attention because the information shared, I think, is definitely relevant to the broader Star Wars galaxy at large. First of all, the Poe Dameron series, which is one of our only looks into the Resistance era, is coming to a close with issue number 31, and that issue will be coming out in late September of this year, so we've got a couple issues left. And right now they're in the middle of an arc where after The Last Jedi, Rey and Finn and Poe are together and they're catching each other up on what happened to each other while they were separated. And we're also getting information about what Jess Pava and Snap Wexley and others were up to when we didn't see them in The Last Jedi. So there's definitely some very interesting information that's coming out with the lead up to the series finale of the Poe Dameron comic. Then there's the adaptation of Solo, A Star Wars Story. So that comic adaptation is going to begin after Poe Dameron ends, actually, coincidentally, in October of 2018 is when we're supposed to start seeing these issues. Normally, this would just be a fun thing to read and might do something similar to the expanded edition novels where you might get some more details about what's happening in and around the story that we saw on screen. But Michael Siglain, according to the Star Wars website, took pains to say, hey, read this one closely because you might not know what it's going to lead up to or connect to in the future. And I think that's something really very key to consider because we've talked here on the podcast about that whole Scoundrel cinematic universe idea, the possibility that if Solo: A Star Wars Story did well enough in theaters that it could trigger a series of movies that could build up to a whole big Scoundrel situation with the Star Wars stories, with the standalone movies. And based on the way things are going right now, it doesn't seem like, if that really is something they had in mind, that they're going to be able to pull off on the big screen. However, just like Splinter of the Mind's Eye was the backup plan for the sequel to Star Wars, the original Star Wars, in a way, the publishing space now is the backup plan for anything that they might have done in a Scoundrel cinematic universe, if that is actually a thing that was worth suspecting. And so when Siglain says, hey, you don't know what this is going to connect to in the future, well, ideas that they have for story arcs, when Clone Wars was ending and they weren't going to be able to do any more shows, or at least they thought they weren't going to be able to, they found other ways to get those story arcs out to us, like with Dark Disciple, the novel by Christie Golden that actually chronicled an 8-episode story arc that was never produced for the Clone Wars. So why couldn't they do the same thing in novel form for follow-ups to Solo: A Star Wars Story? Huh? So that's the thing that jumped to my mind when I read the thing from Michael Siglain about how we should read it closely because it's going to connect to stuff in the future that we don't yet know about. And the last series to call your attention to is actually a 30-issue maxi series, it says, and it starts in December of this year, and it's a 3-series set. It's called Age of Republic, Age of Rebellion, and Age of Resistance. Very alliterative. And so it's going to kick off with 8 issues in 4 months with the Age of the Republic, or Age of Republic, I should say. There's no "the" in the titles. And it's going to follow an iconic villain and an iconic hero in each single month. So this right now is what we can guesstimate, because this is taking place over the course of a year, at least it seems like it might be, that Age of Republic will start it off. Age of Rebellion ought to be the one that comes next. They didn't say for sure that that's the case. They didn't say one way or the other, so it just seems like a logical conclusion. And then Age of Resistance ought to be the last one that comes out, and if they are doing this in a reasonable pattern, then it seems like August might be the month where Age of Resistance actually kicks in. And so That's going to be right in the period leading up to episode 9. I should say it's August of 2019 when Age of Resistance could be starting to hit shelves. So we're going to be getting ramped up with Resistance stuff in the Marvel Comics in the months leading up to episode 9. You know, it's almost like it's part of a journey to whatever episode 9 is going to be called. And, you know, since it's all about predictions, I made a prediction yesterday about what I thought the Claudia Gray novel was going to be about. So I'll throw out a prediction about Marvel Comics in 2019. This wasn't even mentioned, but it kind of makes sense. But since we got a Captain Phasma miniseries that showed us exactly how she escaped from Starkiller Base, I think we're due for a second series of Captain Phasma, another miniseries that will explain how she escapes from the Supremacy, so that way she can continue to antagonize our heroes in episode 9. Be on the lookout for that. We haven't heard anything about the fact that, you know, Gwendolyn Christie is not going to return to episode 9. We haven't heard that she is going to return either, but yeah, for all the talk about how she was going to have more of a significant role and significant impact in episode 8, you know, it didn't work out that way, but I can certainly see a situation where she comes back for 9 and she is, you know, with a vengeance, about to destroy any last remnants of the Resistance that she can possibly get her hands on, you know, the least of whom is Finn, of course. And there are other items as well that are coming out, so you can check that out at the official wrap-up post at StarWars.com, which I will link to in the show notes. And that is going to do it for today's episode. Over on the audio version at sw7x7.com/iTunes or /Spotify or wherever you like to listen to audio podcasts. We'll do just a little bit more. But for now, it just remains for me to say thank you so much for watching, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.